Welcome back to One Comic Book a Day, where my dog stole my blanket all night. I was very cold. You're a monster. And today we're going to do something different this week on One Comic Book a Day because I can do whatever I want and this is less work for me. It is Spidermas at One Comic Book a Day, so this entire week I will be covering a Spider-Man story, starting with the very first and going to, I guess, Amazing Spider-Man number 4 at best. Am I going to return to Spider-Man at any time? Well, that's up to you and watching this channel. So we'll see how this does. So first up will be the first ever story of Spider-Man in Amazing Fantasy. I always want to say fantasies, but Amazing Fantasies 15, which is the origin story of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. The story we all already know: radioactive spider, nerdy kid, gets spider powers. Not completely all spider powers, but spider powers. Uncle Ben is killed. With great power comes great responsibility. Actually, that last one is not said by Uncle Ben, but it is at the end of the comic, which I totally forgot about because I haven't read this comic in like a decade. He was already middle-aged at this point, writing a teenager. By the way, every time teenager is said in this comic, it's hyphenated as teen-ager. Don't really see that a lot. Not even like standard in other comic books at the time. This is also the first Silver Age comic I'm talking about, and actually the first origin story comic I'm talking about, because Batman and Superman just have like an origin page more than an issue in. They didn't care about doing a whole like origin story. But by the Silver Age they do care about doing that, and also there's better writing. Is it much better writing? Never thought Stan Lee was the strongest dialogue writer. He's very corny on his own admission. And though this comic flows very well, it like feels like it's hitting all the basic points and it's jumping from each scene to each scene, almost like if I was summarizing the story. But no, that's what's happening. So we open up with Peter Parker. He's being bullied. No one likes him. He is apparently the only nerdy kid in school, as they put it. Well, they don't say only nerdy kid, but they say he's like the only like loner, the only one that's away from everybody. We're introduced to Aunt May and Uncle Ben pretty quickly. All they really do in this comic is just adore Peter. He is their world. He is everything to them. Wow, really setting up the whole death thing is going to hit him pretty hard. No girls like him because he likes science, which he's really good at and gets complimented on at one point. But then at one point, scientists make fun of him too, so like everybody hates this dude. One night he wants to go to this science exposition, like a convention, where he sees a radioactive test. It's really just like two circles shooting, I guess, radiation at each other. They call it the Atom Smasher, which, by the way, is a DC Golden Age superhero. A spider crawls down through it, gains radiation. I guess it's glowing red because they say it's glowing and it only is really depicted as red. It bites Peter. Peter doesn't feel well. He leaves. This is where he gets made fun of by the scientists for some reason. Also, they know who he is. Maybe he was wearing a name tag. It's unclear, but they know who he is. On his way home, he nearly gets hit by a car, but his spider sense, we actually don't get it called that, and there's no like the wave thing. He just jumps out of the way in time and lands on a wall with sticking to it, which these blind car drivers don't even see. They're also not going to check on the kid they almost hit. They're almost kind of proud that they did that. This world really hates Peter. Actually, that stays true through now old Parker Luck. And his powers are hitting him pretty quickly. Whenever we do like a movie version, or even like cartoon versions, he doesn't like immediately get the powers. He has to at least like sleep over the night. It just feels bad. Then he has the powers. Once he has the powers, he walks by Crusher Hogan, a wrestler who, if you beat, you earn $100, which is probably a lot of money in the early 60s. He decides he wants to do this. He puts on old clothes and like a knitted, maybe pantyhose mask. It's not actually said, but it is knitted in that way. And he easily beats the wrestler. Here's the funny part. He didn't actually know he had agility and strength until taking on the wrestler. So this could have gone completely bad because he hasn't even tried out his powers. Hell, even if he assumed he had strength, he doesn't know how strong he is. He could have killed that dude with like one punch. There's a agent, producer, somebody, he's never really said, in the audience who says he could make Peter a lot of money. He never actually sees Peter, but he wants to like put him on TV and do all these things with him. The comic even says you would know someone with the spider powers would be like an overnight sensation. Maybe. I mean, there could have been a TV event crawling on a building. I don't know if we would be an overnight sensation. Maybe have 15 minutes of fame. While making his costume and web shooters, he just is able to make these web shooters and web fluid just immediately. Meaning, like, pretty much anybody else could do this, but no one else wants to do it? With the brain power, I should say. But no one else wants to do this, because if you really think about it, why would you want web swinging? I don't know, that's an instant rope. Feels like it would be very useful to people. He just builds the web slingers. And he just has made the costume. He's very good at making costumes, apparently. That's true about every superhero. They just have that costume. Later stories will try to explain how these costumes exist. But it is always kind of funny that they're really good at making these like very light-skinned, perfectly executed designs, even though they've probably never done this before. At least with Batman, you can believe he paid somebody. Then he starts going on TV. He is said to be an overnight sensation. We don't get much of his normal life going on, just that he plans to give a lot of money to Aunt May and Uncle Ben because they have always supported him. So we have risen, time for a fall. While doing TV one night, some guy robs it, runs right by them. He doesn't see why he should have stopped the guy because it had nothing to do with him. He just leaves because he's selfish and self-centered. Later on, maybe the next day, he returns home to find out Uncle Ben was killed by a robber. He goes after the guy. You know how this ends. He confronts him, kind of wants to kill him, sees it's the guy he let go, and immediately blames himself for the death of Uncle Ben, which will be the driving force of Spider-Man till this day. Even though we give him a lot of people to blame himself for over their deaths, it's kind of his superpower. Not the spider. The whole not being able to save someone because it's your fault. Some of them weren't really his fault, other ones are. There's a brief tag about like seeing him in the next issue, even though he has his own comic pretty quickly because he's very popular. By the way, when he does confront the criminal, his mask has pupils for some reason. It doesn't have pupils any other time in this issue, just right here. It's very disconcerting. Like Ditko or the inker or someone forgot that that costume shouldn't have pupils right there, only in that specific panel. And this is where the great power comes great responsibility tagline comes from, because it's setting up the story. But Uncle Ben doesn't say it, but I'm guessing Lee really just enjoyed that line when he threw it out there. He actually could never remember where he got that. I'm slightly suspicious that it wasn't him, and that's why he doesn't remember. But anyway, this is actually a pretty solid story. Not like the strongest writing, but really gets down to the point of something, well, we all know by heart. But this was the first time it was ever told, and it still works nearly 60 years later. And that's it from Amazing Fantasy number 15. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when a new video goes up. I do this Monday through Friday, but usually I'm just doing Superman comics and a Batman comic on Friday. And until next time, let us remember with great power comes great responsibility, because this comic will never let you forget that. Bye!